Hi, and welcome to the Heartbit podcast brought to you by loveisbitcoin. I'm your host, Olyveya, and on this podcast, we speak with different individuals about their background, how they got into Bitcoin, what they were doing before it, and what their goals and plans for the future are. I hope you enjoy this episode, and thank you for tuning in. Hi, and welcome to the Heartbit podcast. I am your host, Olyveya, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with Sanjna. Sanjna is a co-founder of Yzer, and Yzer is a Bitcoin and finance education app. Hi, Sanjna, and thank you so much for coming on.
Hi, Olyveya. Thanks for having me. Excited to have this conversation.
Yeah, I'd love to know, before we dive into Bitcoin and Yzer, a bit of your own background and what you were doing before getting exposed to this whole space.
Yeah, of course. So weirdly, I have zero background in any kind of Bitcoin finance, economics, math, any of that sort of background. I actually studied marketing and went on to do my master's in media and communication. And I was never that interested in finance, even just growing up or, getting exposed to the investment space. So all of that actually only started when I was like 24, 25, which is when I actually realized that it's late. Like people should have a hold over their wealth, their savings, their money at a much earlier age. And yeah, this realization kind of happened later on, but my background is just basically in marketing. I grew up in Belgium, in Antwerp, so I went to school here. I went on to study my bachelor degree and my master's in London, and then I've moved back to Belgium ever since. So yeah, it's been about like 6 or 7 years since I've been back. Done several jobs again in the marketing space, nothing related to Bitcoin or finance. This was a space that I kind of self-taught and just self-researched and then went down the rabbit hole and then got into completely.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, that's funny. It's completely unrelated. So what got you into Bitcoin and how did you educate yourself on it?
Yeah, so I think COVID definitely had a lot to do with it. After I left my job in Brussels, I was working in marketing for about 4 years there. I kind of decided that I want to start something else. So me and my husband actually co-founded a business together. It was an e-commerce website called BrowsePop, and this is sort of when COVID started. So we were selling like at-home beauty products. Great time to sell because everyone was on lockdown and everyone was home. So um, business was going well, and then we just decided to sell the business at a time where things were going well, and we thought, okay, now it's the peak, so let's just sell it and kind of find something else to do. And it's just like you realize that everything kind of happens for a reason, because that was the first business we started together. And my husband's been interested in Bitcoin since probably 7 or 8 years. He's never been actively doing anything in the space, but just familiar with what's going on. And so he tried to orange pill me, I think in 2021, tried to teach me a little bit about it, but it just never interested me because I think his narrative was a lot more technical. It was a lot more about, what is Bitcoin built on? What is a blockchain? What does a block entail? And all of this just sounded like gibberish to me. So it wasn't that interesting, but he was just really pushy about me learning about it. So it took me some time, but I kind of did my own research, found a lot of use cases, found a lot of other sides of the narrative that interested me. And this was more of, I always say this, it was always more of the social and humanitarian causes of aspects of Bitcoin that interested me, right? Like how it actually helps people, how it's used as an empowerment tool. So all of that started getting me interested. I actually just posted about this on Twitter recently, but like I know of a woman who was able to escape a physical abuse case in India because she had access to Bitcoin, and her husband didn't own her money or her account, right? So I think it's stories like these that get you really intrigued, and you're like, okay, this is powerful money. This is money for everyone. And then I just went down the rabbit hole, got completely sucked in, and then yeah, read a bunch of books, had a bunch of educational resources, and now I'm just fully in.
Yeah, wow. Do you plan on we'll get into this a bit more later, but just based off of that, do you plan on getting a bit more exposure on the humanitarian side of Bitcoin and not so much the technical part, just so that it interests more people?
I think so. And I think this has a lot to do with who you're targeting as well. Not to be stereotypical, but I think there are a lot more men in the space than women, because the narrative and the media never really talks too much about the social aspects, right? And I think this is what interests women a lot more. Like, I've spoken to a lot of women in the Bitcoin space. Maybe if you're familiar with Tally and Dahlia, and it's the same story for everyone. It's like they love Bitcoin, but they love this part of Bitcoin, and that story isn't told enough. And that's why we don't see enough women and kids in the space yet. Like, we have to find the right narrative for the right target group. So I definitely do want to be more involved in this space and find a way to orange pill more people, because you're not, a majority of the people, they're not technical. They don't have a technical background, and a lot of people don't have a background in finance or economics. So when you really want to touch someone's heart, it's real use cases that make the difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. And was that kind of the reason why you wanted to start like an educational platform to kind of promote more so the humanitarian side and make the technical aspect seem a bit less daunting?
Yeah, that's a part of it, but I think it's just, so we're 5 co-founders at Yzer. I'm the only female founder, and then it's 4 other people, and 2 of them are technical. So the 5 of us come from really different backgrounds, but we all have the same mission. We all just believe that Bitcoin is the future. It is money for everyone, and it is a financial empowerment tool. So whether it's because of the technical aspects or the social aspects, and I think because we all have such different viewpoints or such different interests in it, it's interesting to come together and create one product that fits all, right? So it's nice that I care about this part the most within the team, but then you also have the very technical, hands-on people who want to talk about layer 2 solutions and lightning and all of that. So I think just having a combination of all of that in one team makes it really strong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what ultimately led you to want to create an educational platform in place of, well, specifically an app in place of like a video course or like a mini series type of thing?
Yeah. So I think that just required a lot of research on how people want to learn today, especially the next gen. You see a lot of people just scrolling through social media. Attention spans are much shorter than what anyone is used to. So instead of having like long form videos, articles, or blogs, we thought that bite-sized education is the way to go. Complete one class in 2 to 3 minutes. And that's just what we're used to in this fast-paced world, right? You're on the go, you're having a meal, you just want to learn one concept quickly. And we do plan on implementing short videos as well, but we thought just starting off with text is kind of nice, because it doesn't require too much like focus, and if you're on the go and you can't listen to a video, you can just read a class quickly. So there's a lot of research gone into this initially with our beta testers in our community, but we just find that this is the way content works the best right now. And the feedback's been great. People love it. Like, people haven't really been asking us for videos or longer form articles, because I think they just want to be able to learn something quickly and feel like, oh, I'm an expert in the field already. Like, I know what a blockchain is in less than 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree on the attention span. My generation and such even younger generations, they can't even like watch a 5-minute video. And I think having text is really beneficial, because I downloaded and used the app a bit myself. I even found it probably a year ago when it wasn't even live yet.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Yeah, and I
want to know how.
I was trying to educate myself a bit more on Bitcoin and just the crypto space. And so I just searched up like Bitcoin apps in the App Store, and it came up.
Okay, that's really interesting to know. I love to find out how people have actually found Yzer. But yeah, we've been public for about 6 months, and then we were in the beta phase since December. So you're probably one of our early testers then.
Oh, okay. Have you done any specific marketing towards getting it out, or has it just been all natural people coming in?
So I think the nicest part is that it's been actually 99% natural. Like, we've not done any paid ads or digital ads. We've obviously done a bit of growth hacking. We go to conferences, we speak about Bitcoin education. But what's nice to see is that the people that we have in the app already just want to orange pill their own communities. So they kind of use Yzer as an education tool for their parents or their kids or their friends, even educators around the world. And that's why it's so nice to be like on iOS and on Android and be available, globally. So people who are already educating people through like seminars or lectures or conferences, they can use our tool as an additional resource. But yeah, it's actually just been completely organic, which is great, because we've grown through to a community of about 15,000 people now. So I think once we do start the advertising and doing some digital ads, we know that it can blast, but we're just waiting. There's a lot going on. So before we do the marketing and the ads, we're just trying to get organic traffic in. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of users for just not really promoting it that much. That's amazing. Yeah. I'd love for you to speak a bit more on the gamification aspect implemented into educating people about finance and Bitcoin. Also, that you're educating people on finance as well as Bitcoin. It's not specifically Bitcoin. What led you to creating the gamification and not just like modules or something?
Yeah, so I think we definitely use Duolingo as our North Star. I think the way they teach languages and the way they've grown is just so spectacular. And they've done, they've done such a good job with the whole user retention and gamification. And I think today, if you have an app, an education app that's social and rewarding, you're going to have high user stickiness, right? Like the social part, it's just that through social media, through, whatever, the past 10 years, everything has become so social. Like, even if people are not meeting in person, they want to be able to compete against others on an app. They want to compete in challenges, games. We also hosted like our first live games last month for Thanksgiving, and we've seen that people just like to compete with each other. They like to see if they're better. They like to get that kind of gratification while they're learning. So that's the social aspect of it. And then the gamification, we kind of, like I said, we followed a little bit of what Duolingo did, but having streaks, having loot boxes, having lives, it's just all a part of user stickiness, because they realize that if they keep going on the app and they continue learning daily, they're likely to get rewarded a lot more, right? Mm-hmm. So on the freemium version, you have 2 hearts, but if you lose the hearts, you get locked out of the app for 24 hours. So either you pay for the premium version, or you just make sure you're learning better and you're not wasting those lives, right? So there's a lot more gamifications we have on the roadmap. Just requires a lot of development and time, but I think these basic features, we've seen a lot of positive impact. We've seen people just want to come back to learn because it's like a dopamine effect, right? Like when we're rewarding people with sats, but these are cents of cents. Like, we're not rewarding 1 Bitcoin to people if they win a challenge. So even just a little amount of sats is so exciting for people to come back on, because they really feel rewarded for the work that they're doing. And I think there's a lot of apps, especially in the Bitcoin space, not necessarily education, that do this. We came across another one called Slice. Like you can just earn sats for surfing on a website. So it's just cool. Like, you want to use these tools where you're getting something out of it as well. So that's kind of on the gamification part. And then you were asking about the money part, right? Like, we also teach money, economics, and investing on the app as well. So I think that's really interesting, because we're teaching people about Bitcoin with showing them what the root causes are. So we have an entire module on Austrian economics, right? So that goes back to when the world was not on a fiat standard. It was actually on a gold standard. And I don't think a lot of people know this. Like, I didn't know this in school. I didn't know that. I just thought that the US was always using dollars. I didn't know that gold was used as a currency. So it's such basic information that if you have no background in, you won't even know about. So I think we need to teach people about the beginning and why fiat has failed, and why we actually need to go back to scarce money and like a money like Bitcoin that's just a digital version of gold. So I think we need to show people that this is the problem and this is why Bitcoin is a solution, rather than just talking about Bitcoin and promoting Bitcoin all the time, right? Like, we're teaching them the history of money. We're telling them what money is. We also have an entire module on investing. So we're really teaching people about economics, finance, money, and not just Bitcoin. And we found that that's the best way to kind of orange pill people and educate them as well. It's not about promoting Bitcoin all the time. It's about showing them that Bitcoin works because this is the problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's great educating people on both the financial institutions and how finance works in general, and not just Bitcoin, because then they won't fully understand why it would be a good idea to invest and to promote Bitcoin. And I think the gamification aspect is great, especially for the younger generations, because it makes it more appealing for them and more attractive for them to actually use the app and go onto it. I'm interested on the background or the business model as to how you reward people with sats.
Yeah, so basically we have a quiz at the end of each class where users have to answer seven questions. If they answer 5 correctly, they're likely to come across a loot box. The loot box either offers a randomized amount of Satoshis or a heart or some kind of other perk. And then we also have weekly and monthly leaderboards. So obviously, the more classes you do, the more questions you answer correctly, the more XP you get. So every week, the top 10 players with the highest amount of XP will earn some Satoshis. So we've been doing this since the start. Every week and every month, we release these leaderboards. And then, like I was saying, we had this first Thanksgiving game where we gave out 500,000 sats. We're doing another one for Christmas. So just these are the main ways. And then we're always doing like other smaller challenges, games, any way for them to interact and be interactive with the app and just get them back on. But basically they have to keep increasing their XP, and the higher the XP they have, the more sats they'll be able to gain. And we actually also do a referral system. So when you refer someone onto the app, you automatically get 50 sats and they'll get 50 sats as well. So it's just small things like this, these incentives that, you know, really get people excited. Like I didn't think it was such a big deal and it would really work, but it's amazing to see how many people actually come on the app just for this, even though they're just earning cents. Like you're not becoming a millionaire off of our app or anything.
Yeah, I think it's like that dopamine boost, and especially if you see like 50, it seems like a large amount and you don't want to lose. If anything, you want to continue learning and gaining more. So I think that's a great implementation, especially to just bring more people on. What has the reception of the app? I know you said that you've got 15,000 users now, just organically coming in, but what have the demographics been like, especially with both gender and also ages and also countries?
So we've seen 40% of our users come from the US. That's definitely our biggest market, especially like the ones who are paying for subscription and you know want to come on to these live Bitcoin classes and get access to the premium features. But after that, we see a lot more users from the global south. So India is a big one, Nigeria is a big one. We're seeing a lot of growth in Latin America now as well. The only constraints over there are that we obviously are only in English right now. So we plan on launching in Spanish, French. There's a whole roadmap of features that we have. It just takes a little bit of time. But I think because we're primarily in English, it just makes sense that the US is using our app the most right now as well. In terms of age and gender, yeah, gender is definitely more male. And I think that's something I'm trying to personally work on as well, and just get more females into the space. And there's a different way to orange pill them. It's a whole different strategy. So hopefully that's gonna, you know, roll out and happen in the next few years as well. In terms of age, we see more people above the age of 18 until 30. But again, because we have such simplified language, we're keeping in mind that everyone's first language isn't English, or that everyone is not so advanced. So we also have kids coming into our app. We also have like 50-year-olds coming on. But right now, the majority of people we see are between the ages of 18 to 30. Yeah.
Okay. Would you have any plans to target more, like maybe in the future, target more so specific audiences, like a certain age group, a certain, like women, you said, like you want to implement that more. So would there be like certain, I guess, like different sections of the app that would be specific to different people?
Yeah, it's really interesting you bring that up, because that's actually the next feature we want to release, where we're kind of doing a personalization, onboarding people based on what their interests are, what their background is. So for example, if someone's a complete beginner or someone's a child and they want to come on and just really learn from the beginning, we would direct them to the most basic course and tell them about what Bitcoin is. Then there's people who have been in the space but just want to learn about the tech and innovation. Then we would direct them to the more advanced topics. So we're doing this with the personalization, but we're also partnering up. So we actually just partnered up with My Primer Bitcoin. They're the biggest educators in South America, and they actually target schools and do curriculums, right? So that would give us a lot more access to kids as well. We would tailor the content for them. But I think a lot of customization is definitely involved when you're targeting specific groups, and that's something that requires a lot of time and effort. So we do want to do that. It's just like a matter of prioritization and what makes the most sense to do right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow, that's very cool. Congratulations on the partnership.
Thank you.
Do you have more plans in the future, as in like partnering with more education systems, like let's say schools and universities, to make it more of like a thing that people should learn?
Yeah. So I think schools and colleges are obviously much harder to crack because there's so much like paperwork to go through. Everyone's not as open about Bitcoin yet, but I think this is again going to change when the bull run starts, and it's just a matter of time and patience, right? But we're working with an advisor, and we're working with some people in the US to get into schools over there, because they've actually introduced financial literacy as a compulsory module in their schools. So they're going to be paying companies to teach their students about financial literacy, because if you've seen the most basic curriculums, it's not included, right? Like, I don't know about you, but I was never taught in school about taxes or saving your money or how to invest. And as far as I know, I don't think most students are still taught about that in school. So I think that realization is definitely coming in now. And because we're not a Bitcoin only app, we're actually a money and financial literacy app as well. It's nice to see that people do want that. So we have been in talks with people. We're seeing how that goes, but I think it's just a much slower process. And I think it's something that actually institutions want. So again, initial talks, but we've been speaking to a few banks, people who are involved with like high net worth individuals. Like, I think it's a lot of these people who just want to know about crypto and Bitcoin and get that kind of knowledge as well, right? So as well as schools and universities, it's also companies, banks, and institutions. So I think we started off as a consumer app, but we're kind of going in the direction of becoming like a B2B2C business as well, because maybe it's just the bull run approaching, maybe it's just that interest coming in, but we're seeing that people want to teach their clients about Bitcoin as well, or their customers and their group of people that they have. So that's a really nice target group to hit, because you're obviously getting a lot more people. And I think it's like a domino effect. If you get into one school or one university and they like you, like, it's much easier to get into, like 5 more after that. So hopefully that's gonna happen. We'll see in the next 6 months.
Yeah, I think it's great, especially with like banks or financial institutions. Also, would it be a plan to, I guess, educate, let's say, like financial advisors? Because I know that there's a few, just based off my own personal experience, who are like very against it because they're not educated on it. So would that also be part of the plans for the future?
That is part of the plan. And I think that's where, again, the customization comes in, like really knowing what to teach them and what to say to them, right? Like there was an example, we were attending a conference last year, an education tech conference, and there was a VC there, and she just didn't understand why Bitcoin. Like, you would think someone in the financial space would really know and have that knowledge, but she was just like, I live in America, I spend in dollars, like inflation doesn't affect me, and Bitcoin doesn't matter to me. And that's where she was completely wrong, because she doesn't realize that even the US dollar has lost 96% of its purchasing power since the 1990s, right? So you think people are knowledgeable, but they think they know everything, but they don't know a lot. Like, Bitcoin isn't just for people in the global south or countries where hyperinflation exists or where your government is corrupt. It's actually for everyone. Like, the US dollar is much weaker than people think. They're in what, $3 trillion of debt. Like, a lot of people don't know this stuff. So I definitely think there's a narrative and a way to educate these managers of financial institutions and banks. And once they understand, they'll be much better able to educate their customers and clients as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you would think that people who are like exposed and that is their job being in the finance industry would kind of understand it or just know a bit about it, but it's still very few people that do actually know about it. So I think it's a great platform to educate anyone and everyone, because when I first downloaded it, it's very straight to the point, it's very easy to understand, and I think having it on text makes you remember it a lot more than if you just had a video, because a lot of people just get it just goes in one ear and out the other, whereas if you read it, it forces you to actually understand it, but it's short enough that it's not like you're just going to get bored off of it. So I think it's a great platform.
Yeah, it forces you to focus. You can't
Yes.
like multitask and do 10 different things, which we all want to do all the time. So
Exactly. Yeah. So you've already mentioned some future plans, but are there any other future plans for the app? Like, where would you see it going?
So the main ones are definitely personalization, onboarding different target groups, launching in different languages. I think this partnership model that we're doing really works. Like we've already started working with a few Bitcoin companies who want to educate their customers. So there's a lot of white labeling going on as well. There's getting into schools, getting into universities, institutions. But there's also, in terms of business and product, there's also maybe some pivots that we want to make, right? Like there's nothing concrete and nothing that we've signed on to or started developing, but we want to use education as a funnel to get people into Bitcoin. And then after that, there's so many different avenues you can go into, whether it's launching your own wallet or becoming a DCA product, right? I'm not saying we're going to do any of that, but I think there's a lot of different avenues you can take after you've onboarded so many people, because once people are educated in Bitcoin, their next step is obviously, how do I buy Bitcoin? So do we lead them to an exchange, to a wallet? Do we keep them in the app? These are just thoughts that we're having now. So kind of figuring out in the next few months what avenue we are going to take, and if we're going to make a pivot outside of education to a Bitcoin product or service. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Great. And we talked about this a tiny bit in the beginning as to the humanitarian aspect. Do you have any, also marketing towards women, do you have any specific ideas as to implementing that into the app as to like personal stories or the humanitarian side of it?
So we do have a module, well, it's not even a module, it's more of a chapter within a module talking about the social and humanitarian aspects of Bitcoin, but I would love to just expand on that and talk about more real life stories and examples that have happened in the world, because I've realized I do this a lot on Twitter, but that's what gets people the most engaged, right? Like they want to hear about how Bitcoin has actually helped someone. So I like that you brought it up, because I haven't thought too much about how I can implement that in the app, but it's something I would either want to do through Yzer or at least personally. And this is a really interesting conversation I had with Tally Lindbergh as well. She was saying that only women know how to onboard women or get more kids into the space. So they should be the ones, really like cracking the strategy or code on how to do that, because they'll get one man will get another man into Bitcoin, but one woman can get like 5 other people into Bitcoin. So I haven't cracked the code yet, but it's something that I'm working on. But definitely more content in the app would help. And when we have the personalization, at least, targeting women with these stories, I think would really touch heart and would help for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be a great like onboarding for women and also just for more people and younger age groups as well, because the more information they can have all at once, the more appealing it is for them. At least like the younger generations, they
Yeah,
need
for
like a
sure.
lot. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what are your future goals, like apart from Yzer? Do you have any other plans that you would like to do?
So I'm actually expecting a baby in the next month.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. So I haven't been able to think too beyond that, because Yzer is kind of, it's really new as well, right? Like we've been working on it for a year and it launched this year. So we have so many plans and goals for that as well. But then I think just personally, I have this to focus on. So right now it's just about like how I'm going to balance both and how I'm going to work around it. But no, I honestly, between these two things, I haven't been able to think about what else I want. just again, like I said, like maybe on a personal basis, onboarding more women or being able to do something to get more people into the space and just cracking that code of orange pilling people, because like we just released a module today on debunking Bitcoin myths as well. Like you have a conversation with anyone and they'll just be like, okay, isn't Bitcoin too volatile? Isn't Bitcoin a Ponzi scheme? Isn't it bad for the environment? And it's just that, no, it's not. Like you want to be able to just spread out this message that Bitcoin is great and this is all just, fear, doubt, and uncertainty, and it's not true. So I think on a more personal basis, I'd love to do more in Bitcoin as well. But yeah, beyond that, haven't thought about it. I think I'll need like 6 months after I have the baby to be like, now I can focus on something else again.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. Just based off of that, do you see a future of having like children's books or something related to more so like little kids? Maybe either in a physical or digital aspect.
So I think there's a lot of people who already do that. If you've heard of Shamory, it's a Bitcoin game that's into mining. There's, like I was saying, Tally and Scott Lindbergh, they do another game as well. There's a few platforms that teach Bitcoin specifically to kids. So I think there's a lot of great companies that already do this stuff, and it would make more sense to partner up with them rather than target everyone, right? Because I think if you're targeting like a 5-year-old kid versus the way we're educating maybe more 20 to 30-year-olds, you also don't want to be all over the place and make it too overwhelming. So I think that's where a lot of like nice partnerships come in. Like we've partnered up with Shamory already. So they send out a Yzer card when they get an order for a game, and we kind of promote them within our app as well. So I think just doing like partnerships and cross collaborations makes a lot more sense than trying to become a super app or win the entire space over. There's a lot of great people, and that's what's so nice about Bitcoin is that I think companies in the Bitcoin space just support each other rather than like take each other over. There's so much space to grow. We're still so early. And all these companies are doing great things, in their own ways. So like I said, I think partnering up just makes a lot more sense than trying to do everything at once.
Yeah, I agree. And it's still such a small space that, and it's still really new, that I think there's a lot of potential because there's not like a good educational platform. So Yzer is like that now, and there's nothing to really compete. And then partnering up, I think, is such a great idea. Is there anything else that you would like to say about either yourself or Yzer?
No, I always say this, that whether it's through Yzer or not, I just want everyone in the world to be educated on Bitcoin. Just start somewhere. You'll realize the benefits of Bitcoin yourself, and just take those few hours to try to understand it before having all these, Bitcoin myths in your head. And you never know, just everyone always talks about diversifying your portfolio. All you have to do is put like 5% of your money in Bitcoin, see where it goes. A lot of price predictions, lot of stuff coming up in the next few years with the halving and the bull market starting. So I think it's going to be a great next 10 years. Like Bitcoin's not going to just jump overnight. It's going to take some time. It's going to take time for people to completely adopt it and realize the benefits of it. But I think education is key, and you have to start somewhere and just be willing to learn about the whole space. Yeah,
and I think Yzer is a perfect platform for that, because online is just kind of all over the place, whereas you have it all in one. So I definitely recommend for people and encourage them to go and check out Yzer. And also for just 6 months to have already 15K with no marketing is very impressive. So congratulations on that, and congratulations on the baby. That's very exciting.
Thank you, Olyveya.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for coming on. And is there anything that you would like to plug in where people can find you? Obviously, Yzer's on the App Store for iOS and Android, but anything else?
I'm quite active on LinkedIn as well, Sanjna Mehta. So I'm always looking to connect with other Bitcoiners. I'm on Twitter as well, Sanjna_connect. So yeah, if you want to just drop in a message, happy to just chat and say hi as well.
Okay, well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Heartbit podcast. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and maybe even learned something. Go and give our guests a follow and show them some support. Also, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. We have a bunch of people lined up, and I'm very excited to share those interviews. So stay tuned, as there's a lot coming.